Um, excuse me. The power of prayer. Hmm. What's unique about prayer? We're studying Torah. The uniqueness of Torah is that God's wisdom becomes your wisdom. God's vision becomes your vision. We're human, and we can have a human perspective on life, on who we are, what our purpose is. And that's what most people do. They have a human perspective. Naturally so. God gives us the opportunity that we can have a divine perspective. How can you have a divine perspective on life, purpose, creation, even on God? When God gives it to you, right? Just like the Alter Rebbe is giving to us his teachings, and therefore we're privy to a perspective that he has, that he shares with us in his teachings. So God does that. Actually, he does it through the Alter Rebbe's teachings and all the other sages of Israel, their teachings. Prayer, though, is unique in that it's not of the mind, it's of the heart. And the heart is a different challenge. It's much easier to stay focused in the mind because the mind is more objective. It's not totally objective, but it's more objective than the heart. The heart is completely subjective. And therefore, due to that subjectivity, we are always feeling in our heart the things that we are subjectively feel close to, that we have a love for or a hate for. Those are the stronger feelings that will arouse in our heart, and therefore things that we will contemplate and engage in. Therefore, prayer comes that we have to dig deeper into our heart to transform the nature of the heart, that it should be about connection to God and not about one's own feelings and desires that one seeks to fulfill. That's what prayer is. Welcome to Tanya today. I am Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We are in the 8th essay. Guess what? Tomorrow will be the 9th and final essay, and we will conclude Tanya. Actually, 1 second. Yeah, we will conclude tomorrow. We'll have a conclusion tomorrow. See you. And of course, on Friday, we begin a new cycle. In this, the Alter Rebbe says that I have heard and am deeply grieved, writes the Alter Rebbe, that God's people are preventing the one who yearns for a life of longevity, life and longevity, which refers to prayer, that there are those who are leading the congregation, the services in the synagogue of the Hasidic Brotherhood, in a way that they're not at a slow pace. They're hurrying up the pace. And that is grieving the Alter Rebbe, that they should go quickly through their prayers. Our sages say there are things that prolong life. And one of them is prolonged worship of prayer. For many, prayer is, when you come in, when's it over? When our service is over? So you just, you go through the motions of prayer, but that's not the point, because that's not engaging your heart. If you engage your heart, then it's a process. Study of Torah can be quick because if you grasp it quickly, you can quickly learn. But heart is not something that is quickly learned, not our hearts that have, the outer layer of it covered with desires, self-directed desires and lusts and so on and so forth, right? So says the Alter Rebbe, even if one is extremely pressed for time, and he recognizes it, there are people that have a job. They have to go to work. They have other responsibilities. They're pressed. So, and they find it impossible to wait for, Kiddusha, which means by the repetition of the Amidah, the parts that we say as a congregation together. So this person who's pressed shouldn't lead the congregation. Let him go at his own pace, a quicker pace, and do what he's got to do because he has to leave early because of the responsibilities that he has. Fine. But not to lead the congregation. Better that he forgoes. As you might say, well, yeah, but then that person is going to miss, Baruch Hu, Kedusha, repetition, all these things. So maybe you better go fast so you get in everything, and he'll get everything that is about a congregational service. Says no. The reader shouldn't be that way. Not to make the minyan go so quick, right? To finish in a jiffy like that. Rather, the one who's leading the minyan, he will discharge those people who are not able to be there, even though they're not there. Wow. It will be as if they were there. In other words, if someone has a responsibility, like my son, runs out because he has a responsibility to take his children to school. So he has to leave at a specific time in order to bring the children to school. So and others have other responsibilities. So it will be considered, even though you're not there, but the one who is leading the minyan will fulfill your obligation of the things that you missed out. As it says in the Talmud, that the people in the fields, back in the day, people worked the fields and they had to be early in the fields to work the fields. They're considered under duress, and they fulfill their obligation of reciting the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah, of the prayer itself. And not only that, but participating in the Baruch Hu and the Kedusha, and the reader's repetition, the one who leads the minyan, the repetition of the Amidah, it's considered as if they had fulfilled all of that, even though they're not there. They're included. Why? Because they're oinus. They have they're forced because of other, again, responsibilities that they can't engage. But they shouldn't lead the minyan. That's the point that he's making over here. Right. Now he brings out this idea further that in early generations, the sages of the Mishnah and the Gemara, Torah study was their primary service and not prayer. Right? Even though in their time, prolonged prayer was also longevity of life. In our times, on the heels of Mashiach, on the footsteps of the redemption, Torah study is not the most constant thing. The primary service, as the Arizal taught through his student Reb Chaim Vital, that the primary service of God is prayer. And therefore, it's fitting that it needs to be done with proper devotion. Again, those who can't, fine. But otherwise, do it with proper devotion in a prolonged manner. Discipline with contemplation of the greatness of God. Wow. Pretty powerful, right? And so he enumerates over here that you should do Psuki de Zimra, praising God, and the passage before the Shema, it's Abba Selam, that you arouse yourself with the latent love that's in the heart of the Jew, to be open to a revealed awareness of God in saying the Shema, and that you should love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, and which that love is latent in the heart, in the soul, and therefore there isn't, you can't command love, but you can command a person to think about your relationship to God, about God's relationship to the world, and then through that contemplation, it will bring about a love for God. Right? This is all part of prayer. And while that love of God is, in the divine soul, and it becomes revealed through our prayer in our prayers, um, so much so that it should permeate even the animal soul's love. That should not be a self-love, but it should be actually a self-love that is a love of God. Mm. And this then allows us to fulfill what the real purpose in our times is to elevate the sparks of godliness. So the sparks of godliness that's in our heart is a lot more difficult than in our mind. They're more buried in our heart than they are in our minds. Right? Our mind, it's much easier to elevate the sparks of Torah teachings as opposed to the heart, where is laden on the exterior of our heart, a love for foreign things that are not a love of God, right? And therefore, the primary service of God before Mashiach comes and is refinement of the sparks of holiness that have fallen in the world, and they have fallen into the heart, right? In a manner that needs a greater refinement, right? In order that we can ultimately subjugate the animal soul that is being fed daily, being fed food and drink every day, which is making it stronger every day by feeding it every day. And therefore, we need to refine it ever more so every day through our prayers. Again, because in the heart, deep down, there is that love, and to bring that and to reveal that is the job that we're talking about. Now, this refinement, back in the times of the men of the Mishnah and the Gemara, 1,500 plus years ago, they were able to do this refinement very quickly. So their prayers, if you look in the Talmud, prayers are much shorter than they are today. Because for the purpose of prayer, again, is to reach your heart. They were able to reach their heart much quicker, right? We have so many images that we have seen that are unwholesome, and many of them are crude and evil images that we have in our mind that is in our heart, right? Think about, you know, I can, unfortunately, and I push away those thoughts, but I can, come up in my thought, very negative thoughts from, it can be 10 years ago, it can be 30 years ago, more. The good thoughts don't come up so quickly, by the way. Those negative thoughts, they do, right? We have a lot more of that, today than ever before because we're bombarded with images, negative images that make an impression on our heart. In the times of the Mishnah, you know, Rabbi Akiva, how many negative images do you think they saw? Right? They didn't have, a smartphone with all the images that are there. They didn't have a TV with all the images that come there that are, enticing a person. What are they enticing? Your heart. It's laden on your heart. So they were able to pray very quickly to get to their heart and to refine themselves. Today, we need longer prayer service in order to do it. And that becomes the primary, as the Arizal says, before Mashiach comes, refinement is through prayer. Powerful.
What about they're living in the Roman times, like seeing the Roman soldiers?
Yeah, but how often did you experience that? Today you experience with your phone unhealthy images all the time. How many images do you see that are not modest on your phone? If someone watches television, how many unhealthy images are people privy to when they're watching television? And they're so inundated with it, it doesn't even make an impression on them anymore because it's so much a part of their life. They're desensitized. Well, that desensitizing needs to be refined. And how's that going to happen? It's through prayer. So that's what the Alter Rebbe is saying, that the prayer should be it should be prolonged so you could get to your heart. That in times of yore, they were able to get their heart much quicker, and therefore prayer was a shorter prayer. They didn't have as lengthy a prayer that we have now. It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but this is what we're given, and this is what we do. Yes, it's a good idea not to watch television. That's for sure. Be careful what you choose to watch because it does make an imprint upon you. I feel regret for things that I saw, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 40, 50 years ago even, right? Okay, whatever. That's part of the tshuva that we have to do. But because that image can come up very easily, which means there needs to be a refinement. Powerful. Yes, struggling with negative thoughts and studying Tanya definitely helps with it. Absolutely. No question. No question. Yeah. It puts our head in a healthy place, in a good space. That's what Torah learning does in general, and specifically Tanya. Absolutely correct. Amazing. All right, folks. We're going to learn Rambam now. Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you.